Okay, so good afternoon, guys. Welcome back to Afternoon B. This is us back with our sixth episode now. It's gone very quick. I hope you're all okay. I'm going to hand over to Toyin today. I had some very special guests last week, and Toyin has brought that back once again, and we have another very special guest for you guys today. So I'm going to hand over to Toyin and let her introduce.
Hi everybody, thank you for returning to Afternoon B. We have a lovely treat for you today. We have the lovely Alex Monroe from the Alex Monroe Jewelry brand here with us today to talk about his business and to give us insight into, the growth of his business, the success of his business. And thank you very much to everybody who posted questions. So throughout our discussion, we're going to hopefully kind of get some of those answers you're dying to kind of learn about the business and so forth. So kind of, my relationship with Alex. So I used to work work in international trade, and I met Alex back in 2006. That's how long ago. Oh my God, it's kind of showing my age as well, which is quite scary. But I still look very young. So I met Alex in 2006, and I remember there was me, you, Emma, and you had two workshop people in your little studio in Iliff Yard. And we kind of sat around a little kind of coffee table talking about international expansion and, going to Japan. And yeah, we've kind of still stayed in touch all that time. And over that time, I have seen Alex's business kind of continue to grow, internationally. And I've also seen his business grow astronomically here in the UK. The massive following. I assume that there's quite a lot of you in our student population who, follow Alex Monroe. And and also kind of going from having stockists to now having two of his own retail stores, with recently opening a new store on Floris. Is it Floris Road in Covent Garden?
Floral Street.
Floral Street in Covent Garden. So if you've not been there, you should go and check it out. It's an absolutely beautiful store. So Alex has given up some time for us today, which we greatly appreciate him for, to come along and kind of have a bit of a chat with us about his business and, answer some of those questions. So Alex, welcome.
Thanks, Diane. It's lovely, isn't it? I was trying to work out, but we've known each other for a long time, right?
Totally. So it's like 2006, 14 years.
Yeah, actually, and like right from the start, I knew that I was going to sell jewellery around the world. Like if I made something nice, I never saw that I was just going to sell it in the UK. So I was always really interested in organisations like UK Fashion and Textiles and the kind of government places like yours where you could get a bit of help and advice on how you can look further overseas. So that's where I first met you, wasn't it? Talking about trade.
Yeah. You'd been on a trip to Japan,
yeah,
kind of gone and had a bit of a recce and come back and was like, I want to do more business. And also, at that time, we were just about to celebrate, was it your 20th anniversary?
Oh, yeah.
We did the whole kind of celebration in Japan, and
I do cheat a bit because I have like the Queen. I have two anniversaries. 1 year I have it in Japan, and then we do all the stuff there, and then I do the next year I do it in the UK because you can't be both places at once. So yeah, I have my anniversary. Also, it's a really hard thing to say when I started making jewelry because, like a lot of your students, I just kind of graduated, and then probably I loafed around for the summer, and then when I really needed some money, in probably November or something, I made a couple of bits of jewelry. So there wasn't actually a specific date where I set up the business. I just sort of, it evolved. So it was around that period that I first started making, rather than on a specific date. So it's movable feast.
So tell us a bit more about your kind of journey from kind of just doing some jewelry to make some money to where we are today.
Yeah, well, I went. It's all a bit of a mystery to me, by the way. So, but I went to. I guess going way back, at school, I kind of quite liked school, but I was a bit rubbish at most things. Not because I wasn't clever, but I just didn't really fit in. I didn't fit into the sort of organised school system, so I didn't really bother with exams, and then. And I wasn't very sporty either, so I don't know if it's still the same. But if you're a bit rubbish at school and you're no good at sport or music or anything, the art room's the place for you. But I wasn't much good at drawing either. That was one of those things. But art rooms have always got a place where you can make stuff. So I really like making things. And after what was then O levels, I kind of dropped out of school and went to art school and just carried on. I went to this lovely art school in Ipswich. They had a little jewellery department, and I was really into fashion. But and so the two things I liked was constructed textiles and jewellery, because they both related to fashion. And as it turned out, when I finished my foundation, I moved to London, and there was just a place available. It was at the Sir John Cass School of Art, as it was called then. And so I applied and got the place, and I really got on with jewellery. It was like we kind of luck more than anything. So it was more a matter of making the most out of the only option left to me. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like I didn't have a whole load of emails, a whole load of A-levels and a whole load of degrees and a whole load of skills. It was basically all I could do was make stuff, and I quite like fashion. So I did the degree, and I loved it. And then I left, and I think what was expected of you in those days was to be involved with sort of galleries and be a bit arty about your jewellery. But I was really into fashion. So I was a bit arty for a while, and I'd sort of make jewellery and give it to a gallery. They'd always take it on sale or return. And then I realised that actually that meant that you were never going to get paid for it. So, as I got poorer and poorer and hungrier and hungrier, I just made some kind of cool, fashiony, fun earrings and took them up to, it was Hampstead where they had a lot of nice little shops. And I went around the shops, and one of them bought the earrings, and they sold them the next day, and they phoned me up and wanted some more. And so I made some more, and then I went down the King's Road and got a couple of the shops there, and it was just me making jewellery, getting out and about. And, before I knew where I was, I wasn't able to. It'll be a problem that everyone has, is you're not able to make the jewellery, sell the jewellery, do the accounts, do all the different things that you make, the catalogues, everything that you're supposed to do. So I got a friend in to help me in the making of the jewellery, and that allowed me a bit more time to find some more shops. And I got another friend in. And probably I was really lucky actually, because I got in with London. It was called London Designer Collections at the time, and I did my first London Fashion Week back in, I don't know when, like it probably was the 80s, because there was a lot of big shoulder pads and that kind. It was actually there was a lot of sort of body map, and I remember I had my little stand at London Fashion Week, and there was a big group of people and outside the body map stand, which was next door, and then someone asked me, they said, darling, are you coming to the body map party tonight? And I wasn't, because I wasn't invited. So I thought I need to break into this group of people. So I stuck with it. Early on, I never did get invited to a body map party. They always sounded good. But early on, the Japanese buyers started seeing my jewellery, and they really liked it, because I was doing this funny sort of tongue-in-cheek, quite quirky British stuff that was a bit unusual. So it wasn't selling great in the UK, but some Japanese buyers really latched onto it. And there was a thing in Japan, I think that's changed a bit now, but back in the day, if someone found something new and it was popular, then everyone in Japan wanted it. So that was quite a quick escalation to where the brand was big in Japan, big to the extent that I would have receptions in the embassy there, and we'd have TV cameras and red carpets, and I was a big shot. So like in Japan, I was a big shot. I came back here, and I was back to being the idiot who wasn't invited to the body map party. But it was good, and it paid the bills. And then there was a time where I just thought I was really working hard, and on the journey of running a business, you will inevitably have crises. So probably sort of third crisis was I was just working myself ragged, and I was working 7 days a week, sometimes working all night, and I realized that the business was kind of running me rather than me running the business. So I took a bit of a punt, and I took out a mortgage on my house and used the money to employ some good people. That was when I employed Emma, who you've met.
Emma.
Yeah. And I said, like, let me employ some people and let's get back into the UK. So I designed a collection that was very much focused on the UK, and we took it to Liberty, and they loved it. And I started focusing on the UK, and then also on the US. So we got in with Barney's in the US and some other good big stores, and we became much more international. So it wasn't so much focused just on Japan. And I tried then to have a job in the business. So I was design director, and other people did sales and other things. So I learned to delegate and to step back and allow other people to do things, and they would make mistakes and do them wrong. But I just learned to not micromanage things. So I think if you're going to grow a business and you're going to employ people, you've got to learn not to micromanage, because that's the big danger. So I kind of let a lot of it go. And, I got good people in, so we started selling well. I think now we have, about 200 stockists in the UK, maybe 200 stockists around the rest of the world. We've got our own shop. So now it's like a proper, business. We have I think there are about 50 people that work in the business. We've got 3 sites where we have offices, bespoke boutiques. We have manufacturing, because we make all the jewelry. I have a design studio. So we're quite a big team now. And it's kind of like snuck up on me. And I guess, that thing I was saying when I did my first London Fashion Week, and I didn't get invited to the body map party. There's a bit of me that is like ambitious, and I kind of want to prove myself and move on to the next thing. So I think that's what's happened all the way. Like, after I had a couple of shops, after I had the shop in Hampstead and the one on the King's Road, I thought, yeah, but how about more shops here, there and everywhere? And then what about Bristol and Edinburgh? And what about all these other towns? And what about France and Germany and America? So I was always ambitious to move on to the next step. And I think also working in the fashion industry, I think this is the big change that's going to happen for me now, is that I'm going to no longer work so seasonally. I think those rigid seasons, it's all being broken down. But up until now, the world's a big place, and there's a new collection every 6 months. And so you go to the Paris shows. We do London, Paris, New York, Milan. We do Australia, Japan. I don't know how many shows we do. And so you design a collection, you get it out there, you take it around, you sell it to people, and almost immediately, almost while you're showing it to people, they look at it and they go, "That's lovely," and they go, "What? What's next?" And so you're already chasing your shadow. It's been such a rush, which is why I think 33 years. I can't even work it out. 34 years probably, because it's 1986 when I left uni. But all that time's gone so quickly because I've always been chasing my shadow. But I just get the sense now that rush to produce a new collection for the next season and to have so much newness might be mellowing down a little bit. And it might be that actually we can spend a bit more time making more out of each collection we do, and doing smaller projects, little individual projects, and releasing mini collections at a time that suits us and things, rather than being a slave. I don't know whether that's because the business has grown and I can sort of dictate my own terms a bit now. I think a lot of people are starting to think that they don't need to chase that hamster wheel quite as much as we used to. But yeah, so now kind of here I am. Slightly, obviously, I got like lots of imposter syndrome. Like, I don't know quite how it happened. But I suppose it's just being a bit of a show off and a bit ambitious. And
you're very nice about it. That's the thing. I think that's one of the inherent things about your brand that I found, that, as you have grown, one, you haven't changed. You know, I kind of still see you kind of pedaling around on your bike in London. It's like, hiya, I'm just off to Liberties for lunch with the buyers. It's like, Alex, be careful, you know. And you are so approachable in terms of, giving your time and, and talking to customers and also understanding customers' needs.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, Tyne, that you said, because I've got quite a lot of friends that are in the sort of chefing and cooking, and I always think there's a lot of analysis, a lot of similarities between cooking and chefing and fashion. And what I've seen happen to so many people, it's happened both in jewellery and in fashion and in restaurants, that you get a degree of success, and then you start thinking you're a big shot, and you and you stop, you forget who you are. So I suppose someone like sort of Gordon Ramsay or someone's great examples where they become a TV, you write lots of books and become a TV personality, and actually what you should be doing is you should be there, you should be in at 6 a.m, and you should be choosing the right onions and chopping them in the right way and actually plying your trade. So I think it's really important for me to remember I'm a jewellery designer and maker, and that's a trade that I kind of do. And the lovely privilege of that is that because, as the brand's got better known, it does mean that I can approach people and I can open doors. So for example, if I want to, like if there's a famous actress or something like that, I can email them and say, hey, let's go for a coffee, So in some ways you can feel it's really exciting to be able to do that. But essentially, the people that count are the people that come into your shop or order online on the website. And what matters is me. The only thing, like take everything, strip it all out of everything. The only thing that matters is the jewellery and the service that people get when they buy that jewellery. It's the product, it's the design, the product, and the care, and your customers that matter. And all this other kind of froth is just that, it's froth. And you so often see people get their heads turned by all the glamour and the froth, and they lose sight of who they are and what they're doing, and the whole thing goes to pieces. And you can see it so often, kind of like there's a lovely restaurant opens, and you go there and it's your favourite food, and then 6 months later they open another one and then another one, and you go back and the service is crap and the food's crap, and they sort of lost sight of what they started out. So that's the key thing, is just keep your focus. Remember who you are, and remember what you're doing, and keep your focus, and remember what counts, really, I suppose. Yeah.
I think that's really interesting, because when you're talking about the sort of analogy between the sort of this massive growth when a sort of chef becomes really famous, and that kind of this like inevitable must have another restaurant, what's next, and that kind of the same with the fashion, people asking what's next. I know definitely a student was quite interested in the idea of the changes that you've experienced in your time, and you just spoke about the seasonality aspect and how that's something that you might want to change and slow down. So, other than that, are there kind of other things that you think are changing, moving a bit slower, like you say? Are there other changes that you think are coming?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, because there have been so many changes since when I started back, you say late 80s. London really was a major centre of fashion. And you had fashion shows where all the buyers descended on, and you could lay out your wares, and you'd meet every buyer in the world, and you could sell your collection for the next 6 months, and then you'd move on to the stage of production and delivery and the financing and all the rest of it. And now all that's sort of blown away, and everything's kind of online. Really, trade fairs aren't the only way of getting orders. Trade fairs are still a tool, but they've diminished in value. And whereas back in the day, I used to do a line drawing for my catalogue. I'd actually draw each piece of jewellery and then go to the photocopiers and photocopy it. Now you can photograph, you can produce catalogues, you can have a website, you need social media and Instagram, and everything's changed. But actually, so all the peripherals and I suppose that the environment and the setting has changed. But absolutely the only thing that matters is if someone, everyone here will have bought a piece of jewellery at some point, and they will have bought it because they kind of really had to possess it. They really wanted it, so they loved it, and it might have been a gift, but it would have been a really thoughtful process before you part with your money. And you have to absolutely love that product that you're buying, and the product has to be absolutely tip top, and the service that you give with that has to be absolutely tip top, and that hasn't changed since forever. That hasn't changed for 2,000 years. So the core values, that it's all about making something absolutely gorgeous, communicating well with your customers so that they understand why it's gorgeous, and then they want to share that gorgeousness, and giving them this fantastic service. But then all the peripherals have finished, have changed. So when I started, I was always interested in the environment. I remember back then I wasn't prepared to use coral because I knew that it was. I'd been scuba diving and I knew that they were ruining. But coral was almost the only thing that I thought about. I didn't for a minute think that a stone could be mined and it could cause people harm on the process. So now the due diligence that we have to do to consider the impacts of the work that we do, and I do that because that's genuinely something I want to do. But also, my customers want to know that you've done that work for them, and they can be rest assured that what they're buying hasn't caused any harm anywhere. And that journey is still going on for me because I think probably for a lot of us, when the whole Black Lives Matter movement happened, people like me who thought we were totally with it and right on and understood the issues and were really doing our best, where it was suddenly a light was shown onto the whole subject, but we think actually we could do a hell of a lot better. We're not doing our best. We're being a bit complacent. We need to do more. So the learning curve goes on, and all those things that work around your business, all changing all the time. But the core values, that thing about having a gorgeous piece of jewelry that connects with your customer, that they absolutely want to part with their hard-earned money for, is really remained the same forever. And it's not that different actually. When I give people talks, I kind of think I've never thought of myself as a salesman, but when I was a kid, I used to love drawing and painting, and I used to draw like birds because we lived in the countryside, so I always used to draw birds. I remember drawing birds and thinking, God, that is a good drawing. And then I'd run to my brothers and sisters or my mum and dad and say, look what I've done. Look at this gorgeous drawing. And actually, now I'm in my mid-50s, and it's exactly the same. I sit at my bench, I have an idea, I do some drawings and sketches, and then I work away at a piece of jewellery. And then when I finish that piece of jewellery, I'm like, where's someone to show? I need to show this to someone. I say, look what I've made, and I've made it for this reason and all that sort of stuff. And if you do that to a customer, they're going to say, oh my gosh, can I have one? Because you sort of infect them with your enthusiasm and your love for what you've created. And that process has been exactly the same for me, whether, from when I was 6 years old to now that I'm in my 50s. So yeah. But it's all the surrounding stuff that's changed so much. But it's not rocket science. You just need to keep your finger to the pulse and just kind of be aware of what's going on in the world and respond to it. And think, who do you want to be? How do you want to place yourself in the world? So whether it's your Instagram page or your website or the materials you buy for making your product or whatever it is, it's all a kind of personal statement that needs to connect with people if they're going to want to share that with you. Yeah, I'm kind of waffling on that point.
I wanted to pick up on your point, Alex, like you say about still having that same process that you did years ago when you were first sketching. And what I wanted to ask, in terms of you talking about fashion and ever changing, everyone wants to know what's next coming for the next 6 months ahead. How have you managed to maintain your distinct style? So for someone who's not into jewellery, there's this maybe an idea of how do you think of these new designs for a ring, bracelet, a necklace? Like where does it come from? And with everyone wanting the next newest thing and that no one has, how have you maintained your brand identity within that as you've developed?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question, and I think quite often with questions I can almost come up with two different answers, but I think 50% of that is a big I don't know, because and that's the terror of the whole thing of working in fashion and being a designer. So when I was a kid, I when I was a young teenager, I used to make clothes. So I made these kind of pink PVC trousers, and I really thought it would look good to wear eyeliner, but it was kind of heavy under the eye. And this was back in the 70s, So I'd wear pink trousers and eyeliner and go into Ipswich, which is not the place where. Well, it wasn't back then, and I'd get thumped. I'd last 30 minutes, and I'd just get thumped, and I'd go home crying. It's like, why does everyone hate me, for doing this? But I had a sort of instinctive feeling of what was working in the world, and so when I design a collection of jewelry, I have I suppose it's a form of expression. I want to think about a subject, and I had no idea. So the last collection I did has a series of it's sort of slightly. It was hard to put in terms of words, but it was a collection about hope and dreaminess. And it was a little bit pirate. So my sort of thinking of books like Peter Pan and the idea of a sort of ship sailing to the horizon and a desert island with the sun setting behind it and things like that. So one of the key pieces I did, what I really wanted to do was, and this was tied in with all sorts of things. It was books I was reading, films I'd seen, just a feeling of the vibe of the world. I think it might be quite largely Donald Trump inspired as much as anything, where you think actually what we want now is some hope. We want to see a little light. We don't I suppose it was like the political situation and everything. So one of the key pieces I designed was a cloud necklace with the sun coming out, with the rays of sun coming out behind it. It was called Rays of Hope necklace. And I designed that and made it, and we put it into the collection. And then the minute we'd done that, coronavirus struck, and everyone was suddenly in panic, and we were all at home. And it almost felt like this was the right piece of jewelry for the time.
Yeah.
And then tie that in. So I think the other thing is know your limit. So I think I've got a sort of natural instinct for sort of tapping in to what's going on in the world and wanting to express that through drawing and through then making something. And that's something that I can't control or tell anyone how to have. That's something you need to be kind of sensitive and sympathetic to what's happening in the world. It's something intangible, that one. But you have to have confidence that you've got it, because if you haven't got it, you're not going to be doing the right thing at the right time.
Yeah. And
my jewelry has changed. Like back in the 80s, I was doing like dinner plate sized, big things. They were very much on fashion. But I've never once followed fashion. I've just followed what something inside me has wanted to explore. As I've got older and the business got bigger, I now we have a design team. So I have these amazing, I put together the design team with a lot of different skills. There's like a kooky Japanese girl. There's this really, really super kooky girl from who came out of uni, and she's Scottish, and she's just like, when I was interviewing for designers, the only thing I want to see, just out of interest, is I just go, yeah. Everyone gives me this beautifully finished stuff. I go, yeah, that's all great. Show me a sketchbook, because I want to see inside your head. And some people didn't have sketchbooks, but Roisin's sketchbook was just like, what the hell? You're loopy. You are, like, God, what's going on here? So I said, yeah, we need a bit of that in here, a little bit. And then there's another young woman who's actually really commercial. So I had these ideas, like I'm going, okay, I can see a ship sailing to the horizon, the sun setting, and the sunshine's just coming out of there, and it's like everything's perfect, and you're sailing off into the distance. There was a song that I loved, and the lyrics went, think of all the people who would love to live on an island, pack a dream and throw the rest away. So I was like, yeah, this is the vibe. And I was coming up with drawings, but these young women, you know, Roisin was going like doing something like, and I'd be going, whoa, what the hell? Not that crazy. And Susie was going, yeah, but if we do that like this, we can make it. And then they were saying, put it on a longer chain. So I had younger women's input to make sure that, I mean, I guess the thing is that if we make a piece of jewelry, we have absolutely got to want to wear it, you know, like even before we finished it, all of us in the room have to go, I want one of them, I'm definitely going to have one of them, you know. So you can also bring in that vibe and enthusiasm from other people if you need some extra ingredients. Because I am, you know, after all, a middle-aged man, I still have the ability to feel that I want to talk about something. So it's my personality. This is what I want to talk about. And I still handmake the original things. So it's very much my personality. But I bring in a bit of influence from young women just to sort of add that more contemporary wearable elements to things. Because essentially, like I say at the beginning, if we make a piece of jewelry, anyone that sees that jewelry has got to say, oh my God, I want that for my birthday. I'm going to send that to my boyfriend or my husband or my sister. I really want to have that. And I think for anything to have, for people to want to love it and own it, you know, it's got to have a lot. You have to love it even more than they do, if you know what I mean. So,
can I ask, Alex? So, I heard that you make every single piece, like a prototype of every single piece, and have you still got your archive of all of the original pieces?
Yeah, but I will say, a couple of years ago, Toyin said that she sees me on my bike. I did get driven into by a car, and I lost the use of my right hand. So actually, some of the pieces are made with help. So I don't quite have some of the dexterity. So now I've got a bit of help. But yeah, and if you think I would say we make probably 4 collections a year, because we do a collection for Japan, and another one might be different for the US, and then we do a exclusive collection for John Lewis. So we make 4 or 5 collections a year, maybe 40 pieces in a collection. So 5 40s are 200, and then we do all our one-off pieces and stuff. So we probably make 300 or 400 pieces of original designs a year, and I have done for 30 years. So I think as a business, we've always been very keen to move on and do the next collection and keep things fresh. But I don't have time to pause. But it did occur to me that one day, when I'm like in my mid-70s, it would be really fun to have a place where each piece, because by the time, you know, it's going to be a lot of pieces in the end. And
it would be amazing. I mean, it would look beautiful in itself, won't it? Just having, you know, have you got,
It's funny.
An exhibition for us to come and see.
Yeah. First on the invite list. But it's like when it comes to design, it's almost like quantity of design and popularity of design almost marks you down on the hierarchy. So, for example, like my jewelry's never going to be in the V&A or anything like that, because it's perceived that if you're making jewelry, if you sort of make one piece in 5 years and you spend 5 years making it, somehow that piece is perceived as being more valuable than if you're making lots of jewelry. So for example, my bee, when I made my bee, there was just one of them, and I loved it. But I wanted to share that with everyone. I wanted to share that with everyone, all our customers in Russia and Canada and South America and Asia. You know, so we've made a lot of bees. And to my mind, that doesn't.
How many bees have you made? Because you did kind of have a record one time when you kind of posted you'd sold like 1,000 or 2,000 bees in the.
Yeah, but that was early on, and then everyone stopped buying them. So never tell people how many you make, because it's like they stopped buying them. They thought they were, but you know, we're
There's
fine.
enough bee. Have you still got the original bee?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lovely piece, but so reproducing it, because we make a mould and we cast it, and then the casting comes back, and then we hand work. So we have really skilled craftspeople working on each piece to get it absolutely right under my guidance. So you couldn't really tell the difference from the original piece. And I don't think that devalues a design in any way. If you reproduce it now, I think it would devalue it if it was mass produced in a place where people didn't get well paid and conditions were horrible and nobody cared about the quality of the final product. But the fact is, you can reproduce things. You can make things in volume beautifully by hand and sell them for more money than something that's been churned out, without much as a care. Because like so many of our customers, when you talk to them, like some of the stories, I couldn't even tell them to you now because they're just so emotional. Some of the stories that people have been through and how this piece of jewelry then represents these amazing life-changing events in their lives and people that they've lost and all this kind of stuff. And if you can't kind of respect that and reciprocate by putting that much love into the piece that you make, then I think it does devalue it. But we're able. That's been why it's been quite nice. We're able to make things by hand in quantities and sell them all over the world, which has kind of been the real joy for me. I think I do like the making process. I like having a workshop where people are manufacturing jewelry to a good standard.
Thanks. And does all of that happen in your workshop?
So we have service industry. So we have, like I say, about 50 people in London. We've got a lovely big new workshop on Tower Bridge Road, but we also use service industry now. So there's some great places up in Birmingham where we work with little workshops with people, and we go up there for a week and work with them, show them how it's done, and then they can help us with. Also with jewelry. Jewelry is a bit like being a building contractor, where you may send something off to be polished, and you may send something off to be gold plated, and you may send something off to have the stone set. So you use a lot of contractors in the business. So things are coming in and going out all the time. But again, there's a huge duty of responsibility to check anyone you're working with. You need to visit them. You need to talk to them. You need to talk about their ethics, their philosophy, and their environmental stance. And then you need to check their suppliers so that everything's absolutely 100% all down the line. Back in the day, it was okay to sort of pay due diligence and say, well, I asked them and they said this. But now that isn't acceptable. Now you actually have to be 100% sure that the gold platers are being really careful about chemicals they're using and recycling them, and just that every process doesn't cause harm at any point in the process. And like I say, so me working in the jewelry industry, when the Black Lives Matter campaign came to the forefront, that was a big wake up call because I now have a responsibility to work with any of our partners to say what is your policy on this? What are you doing about it? So there's another issue that we need to, and it's no good just ignoring things and not challenging people. That's kind of the point about this movement, is you've got to be proactive. You actually have to do something about it rather than just sort of sit back and think, well, I'm okay and I'm not going to bother with other people. So, yeah.
Alex, I'm glad you kind of arrived at that point about the trust and the relationships that you kind of building in this supply chain, because I think when I was reading your main aims and you were talking about this constant working on that traceability and transparency, I'm really interested in what you think are the really difficult sticking points in getting that traceability and that transparency, because it seems at the moment quite reliant on that trust. It doesn't seem that there's necessarily a kind of a system or something that maybe people are really adhering to, or maybe there is something technological that you're quite interested in that might break down some of those barriers.
I think it's all about transparency, and you do make mistakes. Things go wrong, and not everyone does everything perfectly. But I'm really keen on transparency and being really upfront and telling people. So, firstly, we print as much information as we can, and it's interesting because every topic, like if you're dealing with gold, there is such thing as fair trade gold, which is mined and monitored so that everyone that works in the mines, they have good safety and they're well paid and there's no polluting in the environment. But which is great, but the gold that we use is like 99% just recycled, because obviously all gold's recycled. So most gold's recycled. So then you have to make judgments. Like, am I going to use regular gold that's recycled, or am I going to use fair-minded gold, which is mined out of the ground, which uses an awful lot of energy and environmental resources to actually physically get it out of the ground. So you need to make your own. But the thing is to be honest with and upfront about people, and just let them know what you're doing, what your beliefs are, and how accountable everyone is. And so I'm just really into transparency. And like I say, there's nothing wrong with making mistakes, but just be transparent about it and try your best, really.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the best way to be in business, isn't it? And that's always helpful then to build trustworthy relationships and have very long working relationships with people, because you can grow a kind of ethical set of beliefs together as a kind of supply chain, and it all fits in with the product.
Yeah, certainly most people want to do the best. An awful lot of people, they're just too busy or they don't know. And also sometimes you can't source something that's as environmentally friendly as you like, but just be transparent about it. Say, we try and be plastic free, but we haven't sorted out some of the Royal Mail posting envelopes are plastic, and we haven't been able to find an alternative. So just say, well, we've done our best. We are campaigning to have a recyclable non-plastic thing, but we haven't got it at the moment. So yeah, we're not perfect, but we're just doing our best. And I think, particularly working with partners, most people want to do their best, but an awful lot of people just don't understand it, and they need to be challenged. I run a business, and I'm a customer to my suppliers, and as a customer, I do have a bit of clout. So there's very small wins, like we buy loo paper. We buy from a company called Who Gives a Crap, because it's plastic free, but they used to send it in a big box, all bound up with that. That funny plastic sort of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Try and roll it up, and then you put it in the bin, and it all goes ding out again. And so we wrote to them and said, we buy from you because you're plastic free, and then you send it to us with all this plastic on. And they went away, had a meeting, and said, right, worldwide, we're going to stop using that plastic. So it's just little things, that you can chip away at people and just make, customer feedback. It's the same for us. If we get feedback from our customers, we'll make changes. And so you need to do that all the way through the supply chain. Just kind of keep active on things.
Yeah. And I think as well with your customer, because like thinking about your RSPB collection and you have a kind of continual natural motif working through your work, I feel like maybe that's something that you do attract a customer that maybe is more nature minded because of what they're looking for in your jewellery and what you provide. So it's nice that you've kind of grown an ecosystem with your customer as well in terms of that.
Yeah, no, the environment's really big. So for us, and so we built 2 buildings that we're based in, and we use sustainable materials, and we have we do as much as we can for the environment, and then we work with companies like Friends of the Earth and give percentage of profit. So we sort of always have this kind of fund that where we're giving what we can to charities, and that makes good business sense, because people want, I think particularly now, if you're going to spend your money, you're going to want to spend it on something nice, and even more so with jewellery, because if you're doing something like buying a 18th birthday present or an anniversary present or something that says I love you, you would not want to think that in any way along that process that you've done harm to anyone or anything. So I think it's just it makes good business, and it makes really good business around the world. So in Japan, for our jewellery to be handmade in the UK with the strong ethical environmental message, it makes it more desirable. And I think if a customer goes into a shop and you have a range of products that you could choose from and you're not quite sure what to do, you'll go for the nice one, surely, if it does the right job, So yeah, it's both. It makes business sense, but certainly for us, it sort of comes comes from our personality, and I'm really lucky because Emma runs the business with me, and she is like super tough on environmental things, and she's a vegan, and everyone who runs the business, everyone at the top level is really super environmentally conscious. So it works for us.
So Emma's still with you, is she?
Yeah, yes. Thank God.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's
it's really
great.
good.
Well, that's anyway, you know.
Yeah, she's gold dust, and we have very good retention of staff in general because we tend to try and sort of work with people and bring them along rather than sort of chucking them to one side if they don't quite fit in properly. So yeah, we've got a good bunch. They're a lovely bunch at work. I mean, we are kind of, the value of the business is the sum total of all the amazing people that are in the business. So I mean, I suppose it's like anything, like I'm sitting here as if it was all my doing, but it wasn't. It's a teamwork. We're a group, and we have a great team. So that's why we've been lucky, I suppose. Yeah.
Just kind of going back, you talk about Japan and your success in Japan, and kind of going, and expanding overseas. How has I'm working with you, I've kind of seen how in some ways that's benefited your business. How do you feel, kind of internationalizing your business has kind of helped you to grow and kind of raise your profile? What is that?
Yeah, well, there's kind of there's two strings to that. Like one is you need, if you have a lot of strings to your bow, it gives you stability. So if there's a huge recession in the UK, it may be that the value of the pound drops and your sales go up in Japan and America, or it may be that Japan has a recession and so you're lucky that you've got good sales in the UK. And I think so. There's that side of things where if you can, the more income streams from the more different places that you can have, the better, because it just gives you safety. You put all your eggs in one basket. Certainly, I've been in business for 34 years. Each one of those income streams has had a crisis at some point, and it's kind of almost stopped. So it's always, you always think, thank God for the other income streams. And I suppose this coronavirus thing is a good example that having a really strong website and an international website has been the saving grace of my business, because at the moment the business is divided into three income streams. There's wholesale business, which is the core lifeblood of the business. Then there's the retail business, which is our shops, and then there's the website. And wholesale and retail just dropped off 100% and just left us with the website. So that's really good that we had that. But so the wholesale business is core to us, and it's core to us because for several reasons. It supports our retail sales and it supports our sales online. So I think that someone will, maybe in Wigan, will have heard of the brand. Maybe they've got a friend who's got a piece. They might open a magazine or look online and see it and think, oh, that's nice. They'll wander into town, see it in a shop in town for real, and they'll think, yeah, that is lovely. And all those various connections with the brand will then build up that feeling that they really want to buy it. So without that, certainly wholesaling gets you less profit per unit because you're wholesaling it at a kind of third of the price of the retail price. So obviously if you retail it, you think, oh, that's got to be better because I'm getting more money for it. But you're selling larger volumes and there's more consistency and reliability in wholesale, and it's the best brand ambassador to have your jewellery all over the world in all sorts of shops. We retail on the website all over the world, all across Australia, but that's based on the fact that it's in some great shops in Australia, and the great shops get press on it, so that it gets in magazines and it gets on social media and all the influencers like it. And so a lot of Australians then, if they're not able to get into a shop, will order it online. So all these different things are intermingled. And if you're going to have a wholesale business, the UK is too tiny, simply too tiny. In my opinion. So we're making a nice handmade product. It's a bit more expensive than a mass-produced jewellery can be. And when I look at where I like to sell it, well, I like to sell it in HP in Shinjuku and in Japan, and I'd like to sell it in this lovely shop in Sydney and this lovely shop in downtown New York and a couple of shops in LA, and then so you kind of think all these places are great. Whereas in London, really, like we sell to all the main people, but I guess UK population 60 million, and the global population is I don't know how many it is, but it's
a lot more.
Yeah. Never really got the idea of thinking of national borders. Exporting isn't a problem. It's not difficult. It can be hard to maybe to find the accounts and get the sales. But if I make an order for a shop in Japan, I make the jewellery and deliver it and then get paid for it exactly the same as if I make an order for a shop in Hampstead. It makes no difference to me.
Amazing. I think that was, there's so many ideas and so much information. Thank you so much for being so open. I'm just can we just do a quick few fire questions just for the students that have sent in, just to so they can make sure we covered them. To be honest, you've covered most of it in the discussion anyway, but I think someone wanted to know what was the most valuable lesson you learned while building a successful brand.
Yeah, I guess it's the lesson that I keep forgetting is that you're running the business, don't let the business run you, because you can really easily get swamped by the massive amount of things that you've got to do, and it can really make you quite miserable, overworking and stressing about everything. You're supposed to be doing this because it's something that you want to do, and it's going to be fun. Now, it will be hard. There will be years and years of extremely hard work, and not everyone's going to make it. But just remember why you're doing it and who's running who, and don't let the tail wag the dog. That's what I'd say.
Good advice.
And what's your good? So, have you got any sort of blows today? I mean, if no one took away nuggets of information, the question was: do you have any advice for young jewelry designers starting their own brands? What would in this climate, because you think about when you started, it was a very different landscape. There's
no internet.
Yeah, what would your
Yeah, no internet.
I know. When you said, what did you say when you said your emails? I was like, Alex, there weren't emails.
No, exactly. But
I just dial up internet when we were lucky.
I think it's pretty much the same thing. So my friend Maya has just started her own brand, and it's called Manon, Manom, Manon Jewelry. And she makes these kind of like half moon. They're just gorgeous. Like it's annoying for me because my kids see her jewelry and just go, "Oh, can I have that for Christmas? Can I have that?" And they used to want bits of mine. It is so gorgeous that you could not see it and not want to have some. And so Kate Moss just bought a lovely pair of these big moon earrings, and then she's been all over everything. So Maya's a great friend. She designs gorgeous jewelry that everyone in the whole world would just want to have. So now the problem for her is whether she's got those other. If she wants to, I wouldn't even recommend that everyone does what I've done, because I've just worked my guts out for. Other people might want to have a better work-life balance, and other people might want to work for a company rather than set up their own business. But if you want to set up your own brand, if you're up for the challenge and you really want to give it a go, you've got to have this raft of skills. So not only need you make a lovely product, but you've also got to be able to sell it, and you have to be able to juggle the finances and think about the marketing and run social media, and you've got to do everything. Now, sure, you can hire in, if you get the money, you can hire in certain skills. You can hire in an accountant to help you with the finances and that kind of stuff. But you're going to have to get going from standstill. You're going to have quite a good raft of skills. So as I see it with Maya, her jewelry, she's got the jewelry. The jewelry is gorgeous. You couldn't have nicer jewelry than that. It kind of practically sells herself. The next question will be, does she have the drive, ambition, perseverance, business skills, all those other things that you need in order to push that, to make it self-sustaining? And ultimately, so we have, like I was saying, stockists all over the world, all over the UK. I've got 50 employees. I've got all these different buildings that I own through London. So on paper it looks good, but ultimately, what you're trying to do is, in my view, is you're trying to sustain yourself with the thing that you love. So it doesn't matter if you're a sole trader. It's you on your own with a lovely little boutique in Norfolk. If you can make a living out of what you do, that is equally as successful as what I've done. I've just taken a different route. So one isn't better than the other. But do you have that raft of skills? Because it's not only based on having the great product. Do you have that raft of skills that can turn having a lovely product into something that can sustain you, that can pay the rent and put food in your tummy? So that's the next question for the lovely Maya is where she takes it from here. And I think that'll be the challenge for a lot of your students is you've got to have perseverance, and you've got to be lucky enough to be quite good at quite a broad range of things. So it probably won't be the best designer that maybe makes it running their own business. It'll be the person who's best at this group of things.
Yeah, that is a good point. See, students, you see, that's why we teach you all those tools and all those different sets of skills. You see,
really important. I mean, I was sort of low to medium when it comes to being a talented jewellery designer when I was at uni. I certainly, nobody would have suspected that I would have made anything of it. But it was because I actually quite enjoyed the account, and I really enjoyed selling stuff, and I was able to adapt, and also, I was stupid enough to keep bashing my head against the brick wall until I got through. So, yeah.
Well, thank goodness you were. Thank you.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's great to kind of see you kind of stood the test of time, and all the different economic kind of environments that we've kind of been through. 2008 kind of crash, and I remember there was quite a lot of jewelry brands around that time, and and kind of what that was kind of my sector which I worked in. And lots of jewelry designers aspired to be like you, and and it we kind of have things like the recession kind of happen, and you do start to see brands start to fall to the wayside, but you have managed to stand the test of time. You've managed to kind of maintain that very distinct look about your jewelry wherever I go, and whether I'm watching the TV or whether I'm out and about and I see someone with jewelry on, I'm like a magpie, and I'm like, is that an Alex Monroe? It's seriously, and they're kind of like, whoa, why are you asking me? And I'm like, it is, how do you know? But your jewelry is so distinct, regardless of whether I've been to your shop and kind of brought it up or not. You've got a very distinct style about what you do, and and it's a talent to you.
I think that would be a big tip for your students is find your style, find your signature, and be you. Don't try and do something that isn't you, because you're not going to do it as well as somebody else. So just be you, and if you're lucky enough that who you are connects with people, then that's great. But I think the idea of not being true to yourself, not doing your own original ideas, and not exploring those things that you really want to communicate, then I think it would be really tricky. So yeah, just do you, and then and keep your fingers crossed.
That's great.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Alex. I'm a bit conscious of time. We could speak to you all day here.
Yeah.
We got so many questions from students, but I think it was wonderful to have you on. We'd love to have you back on again sometime, I'm sure. Maybe next time we'll all have a bee necklace on. Hopefully.
Yeah, I want to need definitely.
Yeah, depending on how well this podcast goes.
It's so funny, when I used to go about the organisation, it was kind of like people used to go to us, is it a uniform that you guys have got? Because we'd all have bees.
Well, we had that nice chap that presents the sewing bee. I can't remember his name, but
the eTalks guy.
he wears one and he looks great in it. So it's it's unisex.
There we are.
Boss, that's it.
That's
it is.
great.
It's a new name.
We're doing a great collection that we'll be announcing soon. It's all about non-gender specific jewellery because we're keen to move away from. People often say, "Do you do men's jewellery?" And I kind of think, well, I do jewellery. Like,
Yeah.
it goes back to when I used to wear pink trousers and eyeliner.
Yeah.
It's like,
I'd love to see a picture of you like
I
that.
was going to say, when you said you had an instinct of what was going on, I was like, is that what you trying to prove with your big BBC trousers in Ipswich?
it was all the rage. All the rage. That wasn't.
Were they knocking
Yeah, it wasn't. It
down
wasn't.
your door? The question is, Alex, have you got a picture of you in your pink PVC trousers?
We want to see it.
If I had, I wouldn't tell you.
Oh, that's
Thank
brilliant.
you. It's been so lovely. Thank you.
Right, guys.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. That was great.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Another great episode. As always, leave your comments, likes, feedbacks. We'll post all of Alex's socials down below. So if you want to get in touch with him, see what he's up to, see what's coming out in the next few months, weeks, years, whatever it may be. But as always, I don't know who it is next week, actually, for episode 7. Who's taking the reins? I think
It must be me or Fran. It might be Fran.
Yes,
Might
I know
be.
'cause you-
might be.
I don't know. We'll have to work
We'll
it
have
out.
to do. We'll have to do a teaser throughout the week then. For now.
Yeah.
But as always, thank you, everyone, and thank you again, Alex. It was a pleasure.
Real pleasure. Nice to see you all. Thanks a lot. I'm signing off.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you a lot.
Bye, Alex. Bye.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.